What's up, guys? Thank you again for joining me for bobK0T0R's Gaming News. Today I'm going to be bringing you Microsoft's E3 press conference details, along with the many new games they debuted, and they didn't even mention the word TV once. So let's dive right in. And one of the first things Microsoft had showed off was the brand new trailer for Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Now, mind you, it is not an Xbox One exclusive, but still looks great nonetheless, as they detailed a lot of the open world features, as well as transportation, characters, storyline, action, and more. The game looks better each time I see it, and I definitely can't wait. Sadly, no details as a release date yet, but I'll definitely be keeping my ear to the ground for it. And then they had moved right along into Xbox 360 content, debuting a brand new slim model of the system, which looks very much like the Xbox One. No details as far as price or anything like that, at least on the console itself, at the conference, but it did release today, so you can definitely find that at your local retailers. Just as well, they started showing off some brand new Xbox 360 games, like World of Tanks, the PC hit with 15 on 15 multiplayer and 60 million people online on PC, is now coming to Xbox Live Gold for free as long as you're a Gold subscriber. And speaking of Xbox Live Gold, if you have it between July and the date of Xbox One's release, you'll be getting 2 free downloadable games a month, starting with Assassin's Creed 2 and Halo 3. So that's a pretty good deal, especially if you're planning on keeping your Gold subscription regardless. Then they had moved on to talk about 2 brand new games, one of them being Dark Souls 2, which recently all we'd ever seen was just trailers for, and they had actual gameplay footage this time around, which the game looks running smoothly and very good detailed graphics with high-end combat. Very good looking game, just as well as the brand new IP, Max and the Curse of Brotherhood, a side-scrolling platformer where you're playing as the main character, Max, trying to save your brother from dark forces. All the while, it has a very Pixar-esque graphical style, which looks very, very good even on Xbox 360. After their talk with the Xbox 360, they had moved right back into Xbox One with an exclusive game which might even be considered Game of Show, Rise, Son of Rome. And in this particular game, they started off with a cinematic, or what I believe was a cinematic, because they had smoothly moved right into gameplay. And the gameplay for this does look very fast, smooth, and brutal. You are seeing blood and guts, visceral combat, and even teamwork with the NPC soldiers, making your own phalanx line to block against incoming enemy arrows, even telling your soldiers when to throw spears at the enemy to take down those same archers. Then, in the interest of time, they had sped the trailer up to what was a further part of that same level, where you're inside the enemy castle trying to take over a small tower with a catapult on it to shoot it at another larger tower, keeping your men from getting inside. Now, they had shown off a lot of the gameplay and combos, as much as blocking 2 enemies at once and killing them both at the same time. A lot of very fast-paced, brutal combat, and later was announced that it's going to be having multiplayer modes as well, and it'll be an Xbox One launch title. And thereafter, much to everyone's surprise, Microsoft had announced that Killer Instinct is going to be revived from its N64 and Super Nintendo days into a modern fighting classic on Xbox One, which is also going to be free to play at launch. And then Microsoft had brought on stage the guys from Insomniac Games to talk about their brand new exclusive Xbox One IP, Sunset Overdrive. Now, this is a type of game that doesn't quite take itself seriously. It's going to be a open-world zombie-esque shooter, but you're also going to be able to kill zombies with, from what I saw in the cinematic trailer, soda bombs and vinyl records. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of turn that game takes. And then they had brought on the guys from Turn 10 Studios to talk about Forza 5. And now, the coolest feature by far, at least that I saw, was the Drivatar. This is going to be an actual program in the game that learns how you play, so then when you're not home, it can take your Drivatar online and face other players online and earn you in-game credits. To me, that's mind-blowing, and I cannot wait to see how they implement that same similar feature in other games in the future. And then Microsoft had struck up a conversation about indie games, stating that the Xbox 360 was one of the first platforms, at least as far as consoles go, that really put indie games on the map, and thus announcing that Minecraft Xbox One Edition will be releasing. No actual date, but considering that Minecraft was Xbox 360's one of their highest selling games, it'll definitely be one to keep an eye out. And then Sam Lake from Remedy had showed up to talk about Quantum Break, which they had debuted back at the Xbox One reveal. In this particular game, you're going to be playing your character who can stop and freeze time thanks to a science project gone wrong. And in this particular case, they showed a cinematic trailer of that very example, of an explosion happening and him actually saving a person from that said explosion, taking her out of the frozen time, having a conversation with her, and then the time had eventually unfroze by itself, thus ending the trailer. They had further explained that the game is going to be storytelling itself through a TV show, that your actions in-game will reflect how each episode turns out. Then they showed a brief trailer for a new game called D4. It was a very, very short trailer. It's going to be a murder mystery game with very similar graphics to that of Telltale's The Walking Dead. And then they had moved on to a Microsoft Studios exclusive called Project Spark. Now this game is going to be a plethora of creativity, able to make open worlds, villages, enemies, adding brains to inanimate objects. There's so much that I wouldn't be able to explain it to you properly, so I'll be linking that in the description below. Immediately after, they had switched gears a little bit to talk about some of the new features on Xbox One. In this particular case, video editing. Yes, video editing. You're going to be using a program called Upload Studio, which has a DVR function which saves some footage from your gameplay so you can go back, edit that footage, and place it online either on Xbox or many of your favorite social networks. And then if you feel like sharing in a different way, you can actually live broadcast and stream from Twitch TV, as Microsoft and Twitch have an exclusive deal through streaming on Xbox One, so people can watch it either from the comfort of their Xbox or their PC at home. And then they'd also made a huge announcement that your friends list will no longer be limited to 100 people, so you can have as many friends as you want, and they will no longer be using the infamous Microsoft points, and instead are using an actual cash currency formula for Xbox One. At this point in the conference, Microsoft had started bringing out all the heavy hitters, so I'll be putting these in the description below. They started off with Capcom's Xbox One exclusive Dead Rising 3. Now, sadly, you're not going to be playing as series star Frank West. In this case, you're going to be playing as a brand new character by the name of Nick Ramos. Now, one of the key features they were showing off was the fact that you can actually craft weapons on the fly, as opposed to needing the crafting table like in Dead Rising 2. Some of the examples they gave were very simple flashlight to a gun, or the much more complicated and interesting sledgehammer with a circle saw. It was pretty damn interesting. They've also added distraction type weapons to use against zombies, like a flare gun. So definitely check the video in the description to see all the great gameplay from Dead Rising 3. At that point, they had moved on to CD Projekt Red's The Witcher 3. Now, they didn't mention if this was going to be an Xbox One exclusive, but considering Xbox 360 had The Witcher 2, I'm assuming this one's going to be an exclusive. Now, they showed a mixture of cinematic and gameplay. Regardless, Witcher 3 looks phenomenal, and they said it's going to have over 100 hours of gameplay easily. So very excited to see that go through. And then they brought out EA's studio, DICE, to talk about Battlefield 4, which had started with some technical difficulties, but they finally got the show on the road. And then they showed off the gameplay of a giant battle on top of a naval warship that would eventually sink into the sea, having your main characters jump on a very small boat trying to escape the sea until they got blown up, ending the trailer. Lots of very high detail graphics, much more detail than a lot of the other trailers I've seen for Battlefield in general, so very good on them for that. And then lastly, they showed off a trailer for a new game of a hooded character walking through a desert, which eventually led to a giant robot coming out of the sand, which had blown off the hood of this hooded character to be Master Chief. Now, they didn't say specifically if this was Halo 5, all they said it was going to be a new Xbox One Halo game. Now, that leads me to believe it might be a spin-off or anything like that, but we'll have to wait and see. They said we'd be getting more information as time goes on, so hopefully sooner rather than later. And as far as the two last notes of the conference go, Microsoft had announced that the Xbox One will be releasing at $499 in November of this year, so definitely try to get your pre-order out for that, so I imagine those will be selling out pretty quickly. Now, the last game they had showed was Respawn Entertainment's Xbox One exclusive, Titanfall. Now, this is a sci-fi first-person shooter with wall running and mechs. The game looks gorgeous. The animations in particular really amazed me with how smooth the mechs actually move, and then how seamlessly you just go from being on the ground to inside the mech, controlling it just like you would your character. The mechs can fly around, stomp on enemy soldiers. The multiplayer even that they were showing on screen had a NPC talking to you through your comm link telling you that one of your upgrades was available, almost adding sort of a story element to it. It was very, very well done. Definitely check out the links in the description below, guys. But that is how they ended the Microsoft E3 2013 press conference. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you around next time.